Parshas Chukas Tov Shin Pei Beis. Tonight, actually a special night. We have stiff competition in the Bell Works tonight. Huge siyum for Rabeli Stefanski's shir and Daf Yomi. Actually, I learn and I do chazara with Rabeli's shir every day. But Lamaisa, when for 630 some odd weeks in a row, you come to give a shir in one place. So this is my place tonight. This is where I am. Here, Baruch Hashem, dedicated to our Nesivos Shalom shir. And I guess I'll have to watch the video of that beautiful occasion. Baruch Hashem, we were zoichet to finish Masechta Yevamis this week. A big accomplishment. And now we're on to Masechta Ksubas in the Daf Yomi. But for Nesivos Shalom shir, it goes week by week in the Parshas HaShavua. And this week, in the Chutz La'aretz, we learn Parshas Chukas. And our Parsha begins by teaching us about the halachos of the Parah Aduma. How we go about the Parah Aduma, how it's brought, what you do with the Parah Aduma. And the Torah begins in our Parsha. The Torah tells us, Zois chukas ha-Torah, asher tziva Hashem leimor. And really, there's a lot of drush on this beginning pasuk of the parsha. There's a lot of drush already that speaks to us about chukim, about zois, about Torah. And we have a lot that we've said over the past few years, things that we learn out from this pasuk. But this year I'd like to bring out and speak about a beautiful and very important lesson that the Nesivos Shalom teaches us from this pasuk. And the pasuk, Zois Chukas HaTorah, it's teaching us about, says the Nesivos Shalom, it's teaching us about the laws of the way to learn Torah. Everybody knows, whether it's Daf Yomi you're learning, whether it's in Yeshiva, you're learning Be'iyah, you're learning Chumash, you're learning Tanakh, whatever it is, it's wonderful that you're learning Torah. But we have to know also that there is an optimal and important way to go about learning the Torah. And the Nesivos Shalom begins as follows, and he says that we know, and we're very fortunate that HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose us, Klal Yisrael, as the Am HaNivchar, the chosen nation. You can walk around with your heads held up high because you're part of the chosen nation. But how is it that we maintain this status of being a chosen nation? That we need to know. That's through the Torah. We're not just chosen because maybe we're better at some other things and because we might, for whatever exterior and external reason. There's one very important reason, and that is the Torah. As we say in the bracha, Shebachar Banu Mikol Amim, V'nasa Lanu Es Torah Sai. HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose and He gave us the Torah. And the way we maintain that chosen nation status is by understanding that it all revolves around the Torah. And the choosing of us above all other nations is because we receive and we live by the Torah. We become connected to Hashem through the Torah, and that's how we maintain chosen nation status. We connect HaKadosh Baruch Hu through the Torah. And the Torah tells us, Zois Chukas HaTorah. The Torah tells us that this is the way our Parsha begins. Our Parsha begins that this is the way of the Torah. It's not enough to learn Torah. There is a way to conduct your life. There is a way to keep the Torah and a way to maintain your kesher with the Torah and thereby maintain your kesher with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the Torah tells us, the Nesivos Shalom says, the Torah tells us the secret in this week's Parsha. And the Torah tells us by Parah Aduma, V'sorafes ha-parah. You have to burn the Parah Aduma. Zok the Nesivos Shalom. What does it mean by burning, destroying, and doing away with the para, that alludes to a person burning and doing away with the chumrius, with gashmias. The way Zois Chukas HaTorah, the law of a Yid maintaining his kesher to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the Torah, is V'sarafas HaPara, that you burn the gashmias, the chumrius, where that is totally not an ikr in your life. Learning Torah has to be with tahara, and when a person learns Torah with tahara, then the Torah becomes a part of you, and through that you connect to Hashem. Zois Chukas HaTorah. That's the secret. That's what the Torah does for us, and that's how we maintain our status as the chosen nation. However, says in Nesivos Shalom, if the Torah is mixed with other things that you consider important in your life, the Torah is mixed with your desires for gashmias, the Torah is mixed with your desire for worldly pleasures and luxuries, then that is not the Torah. It may give you a lot of knowledge, and when you learn Torah, you gain knowledge, but that is not the Torah that connects one to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's not where we come in as the Am HaNivchar. That's not Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Amim and Osa Lono is Torah Soyer. Rabban Shalom gave us a Torah that's with Tahara, not mixed with Gashmias. And that is the Chukas HaTorah, the rule of how we connect to the Torah and through the Torah to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And it is not through Gashmias. And don't let anyone tell you otherwise, that it's okay and Gashmias, you could have even Gashmias and Ruchnias. No, the focal point and the subject of your focus in your life has to be the Torah and the pure Torah. And we see that the Torah specifically says a lashon of Zois Chukas HaTorah, and many Mefarshim speak about this inyan of why it does not say Zois Chukas HaPorah. This is the law of the Para Aduma, or Zois Chukas Tahara, the laws of purity. The Torah specifically says Zois Chukas HaTorah, to teach us that this is a klal of how to be Zoicha to the Torah. To be Zoicha, to connect to a Torah that brings one to Dveikis B'Hashem. And these are the rules of how to do it. The Sarafas HaPara. You have to burn away all the desires of Gashmias that you have. And without being busy with Gashmias and the pursuit of things that revolve around physical Gashmias. And that is a way, that's one way actually of explaining the drasha of, we know in the Parsha Paraduma, it says also Zois HaTorah Adam Ki Amus Ba'ohel. So Avada, we've spoken over the years about how a person has to push themselves for Torah, Mesiras Nefesh for Torah, Zois HaTorah Adam Ki Amus Ba'ohel. We say Ein Divrei Torah Miskaimin El B'mi Shemeimis Atzmei Eleh. You have to put yourself out there to work on Torah, sometimes physical, to forego physical pleasures for the sake of learning Torah, to squelch that desire for material pleasures and material objects, really. As the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos tells us, the Mishnah says, Kach hi darko shel Torah. Not the way of a Yid. Doesn't say a lashon of, this is the way of a Jew. The way of a Jew, there might be different ways of conducting yourself in different situations. But if you want to be a Ben Torah, you want to live a life of Torah where you connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu through the Torah, then kachi darko shel Torah, then pas b'melech toichel. You can't be busy with Gashmias. And very, very interesting thing, the Nesivos Shalom says, the Rambam says in Hilchas Talmud Torah, Perek Gimel, the Rambam says something very interesting. He says that you cannot be koine the Torah. And Rambam says straight out, a person cannot be koine the Torah through pleasures and luxuries. You might think that, whatever it is, through through maybe I'll build a luxurious base medrash. That'll be my connection to Torah. You can't be kind of the Torah through pleasures and luxuries, or through, the Rambam says, through excessive eating and drinking. That doesn't bring you close to the Torah. Zokt in Nesivos Shalom, something very, very interesting. If you look at the Rambam does not say that a person should not have any of those things. The Rambam doesn't tell us that a person should not have a nice house, a person should not have nice things in your life. The Rambam doesn't say that. What the Rambam does say, that even if you have all those things, and you're able to afford all those things, and you have those things in your life, the important thing to know is that in order to be kaina Torah, you need to realize that your focus cannot be in indulging in any of those things. It doesn't mean that it can't be a minor and other part of your life. The Rambam doesn't say it's usher for a person to have this or that, or it's usher for a person to have something nice. Even if you have something nice, the Rambam is saying that you're not going to be kind of Torah if that is the focus of your life, if that is where your she'ifas are, and that's where you wake up in the morning thinking, how am I going to earn my next vacation? How am I going to build my next new house? You're not a person that's going to be kind of the Torah. He's not saying that ultimately you can't live in a nice place, but you have to put everything into the right perspective as a Yid who lives for a higher purpose. A Yid who wants to be connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and wants to be connected to the Torah. The only way is v'saraf es ha'para. You have to burn that desire, the para, alluding to be mavatel, the importance of any of those things. You could have them. And sometimes it could play a part and a role in your life for the right reasons and at the right time. But you have to understand, you have to be mavatel, the importance of those things if you want to live and be part of the Torah. Zois chukas ha-Torah, it also teaches us not just that we have to learn Torah, not just that we have to do like we did this week and finish Masechtas, not just to learn Masechta Yevamis and start Masechta Ksubis, or to make Siyumim, or to have Sidorim. That we know. But what the Zois Chukas HaTorah is teaching us is that there are ways to go about and live the life of Torah. It's not just enough to accomplish and to learn. And that is where there is no para. That is where even today, where there is no para aduma, where there is no tahara. So had the Torah said, Zois Chukas HaPara, if the Torah would have said, Zois Chukas HaTahara, I would have thought that now, that we're unfortunately, and we're coming soon to the Bein HaMetzarim, we're coming to the 3 weeks, we have to at least realize and acknowledge that we don't have a Beis HaMikdash, and that the world is not the same because we don't have a Beis HaMikdash. I would have thought that that doesn't apply today. Comes ahead the Torah and says, Zois Chukas HaTorah, the Torah is nitzchias. The Torah is telling you, I want to teach you a lesson, even after, unfortunately, there's a Churban Beis HaMikdash. You're living without a Beis HaMikdash. I'm teaching you Zois Chukas HaTorah. This is the way to live the life of a Yid. To live as the Am HaNivchar, to live as something that's connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we have to understand that we have to live by the rules of the Torah and not just by the knowledge of the Torah. And really that's what we could focus on. This Shabbos we learn Parshas Chukas. And we learned this lesson of what it is to be to have Mesiras Nefesh for Torah, how to prioritize in your life. We need to each ask ourselves, what are we focused on? Not necessarily whether we have too much Gashmias sometimes and everything. That's a different shmooze for a different time, not today. But with today's focus is, what are we focused on? What do you think about? What are your goals? Are your goals to be connected to the Torah and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or your goal something else? And sometimes we have to learn how to prioritize, how to balance our lives, and that's really our lesson that we want to bring across this year in our Parsha.